Boruto Two Blue Vortex has given us some of the most crazy moments and abilities in just 9 chapters so far. From abilities like Boruto's Rasengan Uzuhiko and Jura's Tailed Beast Eye Bomb, to Mitsuki's Poison Snake Venom, to even Himawari's latent Jinchuriki powers, we've gotten a pretty amazing sample of how powerful some of these characters are. But these abilities we've seen so far haven't just been cool to watch, they're also, in some cases, foreshadowing the plot and showing us the path that this story is going to take. But that begs the question, what else are we going to see by the time this story is over? In today's Boruto stream, I'm going to go over every single special technique, Kekke Genkai, and Doujutsu that we might get to see from each of the most relevant characters in Boruto Two Blue Vortex. But first, if you guys wouldn't mind liking the video and subscribing to the channel, it would mean the world to me. Alright, let's get into it. I want to caveat some of the abilities by the likelihood of whether or not we actually see them, and even more so the viability of the character having the ability in the first place. For example, I already made a video detailing how Boruto could use invisibility, both in temporary form, as well as using his ability to make other jutsus temporarily invisible, similar to his vanishing Rasengan. I'll give you the basics here, but if you want to watch the full details on that, feel free to click on the link above to my full-length video that's entirely focused on Boruto having one or more invisibility jutsus. And basically the gist of the video is that Boruto could add his lightning chakra nature to other attacks, in addition to the Rasengan, to create vanishing versions of those chakra attacks, or even a full body vanishing Rasengan, similar to the way that the chakra moves around him in the Rasengan Uzuhiko. Another element worthy of discussion is Boruto adding his unique lightning nature ability to Momoshiki and Kinshiki's chakra techniques. For example, Momoshiki and Kinshiki both used weapons made out of chakra during their battles with Naruto and Sasuke. Imagine if Boruto was able to make a chakra staff or even his sword invisible using lightning chakra nature. I want to stay on the subject of chakra natures here because Boruto may have very well mastered additional chakra natures during the 3-year time skip, but just based on the chakra natures that he already knew, there are a number of jutsu and Kekke Genkai that Boruto could have theoretically learned or recreated during his advanced mastery of chakra control. One Kekke Genkai technique that could possibly be up Boruto's alley is Storm Release. Storm Release is a transformation Kekke Genkai that we saw briefly in Naruto Part 2 a couple of different times. That is the combination of the natures Lightning Release and Water Release. Now, in terms of the canon wielders of Storm Release, there are really only 2 characters that we come across by name. And even though the technique seems to be fairly prevalent in the Hidden Cloud Village, those 2 characters are Darui from the Hidden Cloud Village and Saradauchiha. So let's first talk about how Darui uses it. During the war arc in Naruto Part 2, Darui uses Storm Release to basically fire off precise drone-style electrical attacks that put the Gold and Silver brothers on the ropes, and this is definitely something that Boruto could find use for, because this is a very precise attack and allowed Darui to hit the Gold and Silver brothers even when they had a hostage. But the way Madara uses it is much more up Boruto's alley, in that Madara turns Storm Release into Sage Art Storm Release Light Fang, which we see a little bit later in the story, when Jubidara uses it as a lightning speed snipe attack. By infusing Storm Release chakra with Senjutsu chakra to fire off a sharp, thin beam of light that's able to cut through Naruto's truth-seeking balls and chakra rods, this is arguably Jubidara's most powerful jutsu. So if Boruto uses it, it could be a really great counter to Kawaki's chakra rods, as well as a nice high-speed attack in some of his more intense battles down the line, either when he's facing Kawaki, the Shinju, or someone else. Another transformation Kekke Genkai that seems to be right up Boruto's alley is Typhoon Release. Typhoon Release is something we see Sasuke battle against in Sasuke Shinden Book of Sunrise. What we know about Typhoon Release is that it's a stronger form of Wind Release, involving creation of vortexes similar to Rasengan Uzuhiko, but way bigger and more intense. So knowing that Boruto has a genius level understanding of wielding chakra, it's possible that Boruto could unearth Typhoon Release and bring it to the forefront. The manga is called Boruto Two Blue Vortex after all. Among the other techniques that are most viable for Boruto here, just based on his current chakra natures, are Ice Release, which we know that Sasuke had a version of. I would imagine that Sasuke did teach Boruto Ice Release, and I would imagine that any Kekkei Genkai that I'm discussing with you today is going to be more like the Sasuke version of Ice Release, rather than the real thing. And that goes for Ice Release itself, for which we know that Boruto has the compulsory wind and water chakra natures, as well as incredible mastery of wielding chakra and chakra control. While the techniques that I listed above all make sense for Boruto's combat profile as well as his known chakra natures, they don't necessarily make sense from a plot progression standpoint. But one technique that I actually think we're a lot more likely to see and makes a lot more sense for the plot progression, more so than any of the other techniques that I listed before, is Fuinjutsu, or sealing techniques. Of course, Boruto being an Uzumaki should already have a predisposition for learning this. But I would take it a step further and say that Kishimoto is clearly drawing a parallel between Boruto and his grandfather Minato. With Boruto's genius intellect and mastery of techniques, it only makes it more likely to me that we're going to see Boruto using sealing techniques. Possibly on Momoshiki further down the line. We didn't really see Naruto master Fuinjutsu. But let's be honest, Naruto doesn't possess half of Boruto's IQ and prowess. This not only would be a nod to Minato, but it would also be a nod to Kushina, who is the other paternal grandparent that doesn't get enough love. Okay, so besides Fuinjutsu, there are other techniques that Boruto could have learned because of the people teaching him. We know that he spent at least a year with Kashin Koji. Could he have learned Sage Mode? Could he have learned to summon the true fire of Samadhi, the inextinguishable fire that killed Jougan? If so, not only does that give Boruto a crazy powerful weapon, but it also opens up a myriad of fire release jutsus for him to use. Moreover, we now know that Boruto is staying at Orochimaru's hideout in the Hidden Sound Village. In the anime, we saw Orochimaru vaporize someone. It's possible that we're going to see Boruto use jutsus that he's learned from Orochimaru as well. And of course, there's the effect Momoshiki himself will have on Boruto's education. We don't yet know how much Boruto is connecting with Momoshiki in his mind. But each time Momoshiki has come out, he's taken Boruto's jutsus and expanded on them. It's possible that if Boruto and Momoshiki are sharing thoughts, that Boruto will be able to expand on the other jutsus that he learns, because he has thousands of years of knowledge rattling around in his mind. Okay, so now that I've covered the abilities that we definitely haven't seen Boruto use, let's talk about the abilities that Boruto has either used by proxy or used in anime only. And that discussion starts with the Jougan. The Jougan, or the Pure Eye, is supposedly the end-all be-all of Doujutsus. This eye seemingly combines the elements of the Byakugan, Sharingan, and Rinnegan. And on top of that, takes it a step further by giving Boruto access to his own dimension, as well as giving Boruto the ability to see other people's feelings and negative intentions. Are we going to see the Jougan in the manga is a question that's probably worthy of its own video. And frankly, I don't have a great answer for you that I could fit in this video. The jury is still all the way out on whether or not we actually saw the Jougan in the first issue of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. Some people will swear that we saw it, and others are convinced that all we've seen thus far is Momoshiki's Byakugan, possibly under Boruto's control. Now, I will point out here that we have actually definitely seen the Jougan in the manga, we just haven't seen it on Boruto. In fact, we saw hundreds of them seemingly lining the walls of Shibai Otsutsuki's higher dimension. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we're definitely going to see Boruto use it? I don't know. There seems to be a lot of abilities that have been teased that haven't come to fruition yet. Which brings me to my next point. We haven't seen Boruto use the Byakugan, but I actually think this is very likely to happen, especially if we don't end up seeing the Jougan in the manga. Because I would have to imagine that at some point Boruto gets control of Momoshiki's abilities, and with the power of Momoshiki's Byakugan, Boruto not only unlocks the visual prowess that comes with the Doujutsu, but also Momoshiki's future sight, which we still have a lot of questions about. But we've seen Boruto have visions from the future, so we know that it's a thing. That part is undeniable. So what remains is whether or not Boruto is going to get control of these abilities enough for him to use them as Boruto rather than Borushiki or Momoshiki. Finally, I want to give a special nod to a technique that I think at this point we all can be fairly certain Boruto knows how to do, but probably wouldn't use until he gets a Doujutsu, and that ability is the Chidori. This is an ability that Kakashi taught Sasuke, but had to himself stop using after he lost his Sharingan. Theoretically, Boruto's Jougan or Byakugan could allow him to use the Chidori with ease. That being said, There's also folks in the camp that we've already seen Boruto use Chidori Nagashi against the Bug Shinji in chapter 5 of the manga, because he didn't need to avoid the tunnel vision when he was using Chidori Nagashi. I'm more in the camp that it was Shiden Nagashi, since we've also seen Kakashi use a similar jutsu in the anime, and we know Boruto is making his own variations of all of Sasuke's techniques. By the way, we're watching Boruto make his own variations of all the most iconic jutsus from each of his ancestors. What if we get a Rasengan Twin Lions attack, or something like it? That actually leads me right into the next character that I want to talk about in this video, which is none other than Boruto's sister, Himawari. Himawari has been confirmed to have the Nine Tails chakra within her body, but in the anime, we've also received confirmation that Himawari has awoken the Byakugan in both eyes. We even see her knock out Naruto and Kurama as a gag during Naruto's coronation as Hokage. But assuming that Himawari does indeed have both of these power-ups in the manga as well, what does that mean for her fighting style and abilities? We've seen Himawari use Byakugan and Gentle Fist techniques in the anime canon arcs, but if Himawari were to utilize 8 trigrams palm rotation along with Kyuubi chakra, it might be game over for whoever decides to go after her. What if it's Himawari that's using Twin Lion, in addition to her KCM cloak? There are other powers that Himawari has been theorized and rumored to have in store for her. Those include the Tenseigan, which we saw in Naruto the Last, as well as Kaguya's powers, since Himawari is a descendant of both Hagoromo and Hamura's lineage. She and Boruto are the closest any modern human would get to having Kaguya's chakra, DNA, and abilities. According to this theory, Himawari could have several of Kaguya's abilities, including All-Killing Ashbone, Rabbit Hair Needle, 80 Gods Vacuum Attack, and of course the Yomotsu Hirosaka, which is the space-time ninjutsu that Kaguya and Urashiki use to create portals in space-time and move between dimensions. But let's take a step back from Kaguya's abilities, because I think it's far more likely for us to see Himawari utilize targeted forms of the attacks that we already know that she should be capable of with the Nine Tails chakra. Those include Tailed Beast Bombs, Tailed Beast Transformations, and of course the Tailed Beast Cloak attacks. Imagine Himawari using a Tailed Beast Eye Bomb in the same way that Jura just did, but even more concentrated and precise. Or even better yet, imagine Himawari utilizing KCM Cloak to create a 360 trigram or 720 trigrams palm rotation. It seems like the combination of Byakugan and Biju chakra can be a huge power-up for Himawari. But what does being a tailed beast mean for Jura? We've already seen Jura use Tailed Beast Eye Bombs and Wood Style, in addition to flight and portal teleportation that he has through his claw marks. But what if Jura is able to use Wood Style in the same way Hashirama did? Do you think we'll see Wood Release Golem or Wood Style Thousand Hands? Obviously, the one ability that no one wants to see Jura use is God Nativity World of Trees, which is when the roots of the God Tree are manipulated to encase everyone that's caught within the infinite Tsukiyomi. Jura has 2 fully functioning Rinnegan, but it doesn't seem like we've seen him use any Rinnegan abilities yet. Sarada also hasn't used her Doujutsu yet. Well, she's used her Sharingan, but not her Mangekyou Sharingan, at least not in Two Blue Vortex anyway. And I also made a video breaking down what all I think Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan abilities might be, which you can watch by clicking above. To give you the abridged version, I believe that Sarada's namesake in the Hindu religion is the most likely driving force behind what her Mangekyou ability will be. And I think that at least one of her abilities will be some sort of truth or knowledge-based change of will. Saraswati or Sarada, the Hindu deity that Saradauchiha is likely named after, is the goddess of knowledge and learning. So Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan could impart a deep inner knowledge of a base level truth that changes the way a person would act. This could be why Sasuke decided to follow her wishes and train Boruto despite being fully convinced that Boruto was Kawaki. We even see Sasuke say as much during the flashback chapter, where he tells Boruto that the only reason he's helping him is that Sarada wills it and that he feels like Boruto and Sarada are important. In addition to Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan though, I would argue that it's very plausible for Sarada to learn 100 healings, both as a nod to her mother, but also as a potential safeguard from Sharingan blindness. The other route we could see Sarada go is having her learn to wield Senjutsu chakra. Having Sarada become a Toad Sage or a Snake Sage could be cool for the plot, but the most likely option is that Sarada actually becomes a slug sage, like Tsunade and her mother, since those are the people that are in Konoha with her right now. One of the biggest question marks in the entire series thus far is what exactly are Sumire's powers? In the anime, we get a very clear look at her Gozu Tenno based abilities to summon Nue and go in and out of Nue's dimension. But in addition to this, we see that Sumire is incredibly skilled at taijutsu, fuinjutsu, and even water style techniques. She's also very stealthy and very intelligent, which is why she's such a good operative against the Leaf during the Academy entrance arc. But that being said, none of those things are seemingly the answer to why Sumire is immune to Ada's charm, or why Sumire can sense Boruto's chakra when he re-enters the village to save Sarada and fight Code. There hasn't been any acknowledgement from any other character that she's a sensory type ninja, and yet we literally see her sensing Ada's omnipotence when it happens at the end of part 1. And then we see her sensing Boruto in the village. Not only is there more than meets the eye with Sumire, but there are huge plot level implications for all of the main characters based on her actual abilities and motivations. At this point, what we've seen in the anime isn't enough to explain why Sumire is able to sense these things or what's happening with her and why she's immune to Ada's Shinjutsu. Now, I wanted to save Kawaki for last because the last 8 chapters of Boruto Two Blue Vortex have been so cruel to Kawaki that I wanted to highlight where the things are headed for him. And let's be honest, it can only go up from here. The guy has had his face in the ground in 5 different chapters and we're only 9 chapters into the story. So where are things headed for him? Let's start with the biggest question. Is Kawaki using the full power of his karma? If not, then when is he going to use it and what are the consequences of using it? I have a 2-part theory regarding the opening scene of Boruto that I want to break down for you. The first part of this theory is that the reason that we see Kawaki's body already covered in karma markings in the opening scene is that Kawaki, like Boruto, has had irreversible damage done to his body that the karma can't heal without literally rewriting his DNA to rebuild his arm. This is why Kawaki still charges up his karma at the end of the opening scene, because he wasn't actually in karma mode at the start of the fight. His body just has all of the same markings permanently, just like Boruto. Because just like Boruto, the karma rebuilt those parts of his body. Now, why did the consciousness within the karma choose to rebuild those parts of Kawaki's body? After all, Ishiki is presumably long dead at this point. That's where the second part of my theory kicks in, because what else are we seeing during this opening scene? We're seeing Kawaki use a bow staff, but when have we ever seen Kawaki use a bow staff up to this point? Kawaki is the one who has repeatedly said that he has no intentions of training in the ways of the shinobi, and that all of the battle knowledge he needs are in his karma. So then how and why does he suddenly know bojutsu? If we're assuming that the opening scene of the show is happening somewhere around a year into Boruto Two Blue Vortex, it still doesn't give Kawaki a lot of time to suddenly become a master of the bow staff, and it certainly doesn't give him enough time to match Boruto's prowess with a sword. So then why does he even have it? And the answer to that is possibly the same as the answer to why Kawaki's karma decided to heal him, because Kawaki's karma is host to another entity. We know that Amado says that his daughter Akabe's data is inside of Kawaki's karma, but then wouldn't Akabe be slowly overwriting Kawaki's DNA? And if that's the case, how is Kawaki still seemingly Kawaki? Why is he still a dude at all? Amado said Akabe was his daughter after all. I think there's a medium chance possibility that Akabe is living in Kawaki's mind the same way that Momoshiki lives in Boruto's, and that Akabe was the wielder of the bow staff, which is something that Kawaki has learned by proxy. But what if it's not Akabe in there at all? I know that some of you want me to say it's Shibai Otsutsuki, and on some level, I do too. But I haven't seen a single official panel or artwork where Shibai Otsutsuki has a bow staff. But you know who did use a bow staff, and fairly regularly at that? Jougan. Jougan was the single biggest user in the story of the bow staff. And in fact, the stills of Jougan using the bow staff look eerily similar to the shots of Kawaki with the bow staff in the opening scene. Moreover, we see Jougan use the staff fairly regularly in base form and Karma 1, but when he enters Karma 2, where presumably Ishiki takes more control, suddenly Karma 2 Jigen stops using the staff as much. So what if it's Jigen that's being resurrected through the Karma Seal and not Ishiki or Akabi? Or what if it's a combo of Jigen, Akabi, and maybe even another Otsutsuki deity? What do you guys think? Do I have a solid theory here, or am I way off base? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Alright, thanks. Toodles.